This time on Film Ranker, we are talking about Darren Aronofsky. The famously creative and divisive director has directed 7 films which run the gamut from full-on art house to fairly straight-ahead big budget. His films almost demand conversation, so let's do just that and count them down from worst to best. Number 7, Noah. Let's get this one out of the way quickly. It is Aronofsky's only bad film. A long, slow telling of a story that never worked or made any sense at all to begin with. The positives, there's a really good cast, the flood looks pretty cool. The negatives, pretty much everything else. Number 6, Pi. Aronofsky's first film made a lot of people take notice, and for good reason. Pi is a tightly written Kafkaesque story about mathematics and conspiracies. It moves quickly, propelled by Mansell's electronic soundtrack and Aronofsky's tight direction, which shows off many of the tricks that he would later become famous for. The strangely harsh black and white works really well for this story. It's kind of reminiscent of Eraserhead. The acting is maybe a little bit of a mixed bag, and at times the lack of budget does show, but this is one heck of a killer debut, and it's pretty easy to see why studios were so impressed. Number 5, Mother. It is an understatement to say that Mother is not for everyone. It is as art house as they come. But that isn't to say it isn't well worth watching. Whether you think it is about the environment or religion or humanity's flaws or a combination of any or all of the above, it is a film that is as much about the conversation as it is the experience. The style kind of sneaks up on you. What starts as overstepping guests slowly breaks down one absurd step at a time until it's just a chaotic movement piece that no longer adheres to the rules of time and space. It is claustrophobic at times. It's a little bit frustrating, but for better or worse, this is a film that burns itself into your mind. Number 4, The Fountain. It may not have had the budget that Aronofsky hoped for, or had quite the scope that he wanted, but what it is beautiful nonetheless. The Fountain is a gorgeously filmed and brilliantly acted meditation on loss and love and morality and the nature of life and death. It moves at a surprisingly breakneck pace, but remains contemplative and steady. It's a tone poem about final moments spread out over lifetimes. Also, Clint Mansell's soundtrack is one of the most wonderful ever put to film. Number 3, Black Swan. The wrestler put Aronofsky on the mainstream map, but Black Swan catapulted him to stardom. It garnered 5 Academy Award noms, including picture and director, and the hype was well-deserved. The intense psychological thriller was sometimes classed as horror because people didn't know quite where to put it. It is intense and at times beautiful. The effects work well, both the small ones and the splashy ones. The camera is always in motion, and the acting is terrific. Obviously Portman, but also the understated Mila Kunis. It is one of those rare examples of an art film that connects with the larger audience. Number 2, Requiem for a Dream. A no-holds-barred tour de force of a film. Aronofsky does not hold even one punch in this devastating look at addiction in all of its forms. The 4 stories twist in and out of each other as we watch lives torn apart. But as ugly as the subject matter may be, the film is beautifully shot. It's a masterclass in editing and zoom and tracking and split screen and pretty much any other trick that could be done with a camera. And there's not enough that can be said about the performances, especially Ellen Bernstein's over-the-counter junkie who feels all too real. Number 1, The Wrestler. Aronofsky's most subtle movie is also his best. There aren't the quick edits, but don't let that fool you. The direction is genius. Aronofsky keeps the focus close and intimate, an unflinching look at a life that is just extraordinary enough to be heartbreaking. The parallel between wrestling and stripping is very interesting. The idea of everyday celebrity giving a lot and getting very little in return. Mickey Rourke is, of course, amazing, as is Marissa Tomei. It's just so brutally honest. The staple match, the deli counter, the broken relationships. This movie more than deserves its comparisons to classics like Rocky and Raging Bull. And that's it. It tends to be the case that people are either fans of Aronofsky or they are very much not. If you listen this far, you're probably in the first group, so let me know which are your faves and maybe like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.